It's the wrong song, dumbass.
Hello, everybody. Tonight, we're doing something a little different. Given the presidential election coming up here in just 2 short months, PNN and our news crew was so grateful for both candidates for accepting this debate. Now, this will be the first and only debate between candidate Senator Horst Schpiel and President Anthony Padala. This debate will be cordial. I will ask one person a question. I will give the other a chance to follow up that question. The issues tonight on topic: the admission of new states to the Union, the threat of the potential future conflict in Alaska, the ongoing conflict that just occurred in Israel, the state of the economy, and, well, fucking healthcare. Nobody gives a fuck. We're not going to do healthcare. And the general welfare and, isolationism versus globalism. So, without further ado, here come the two candidates, Mr. President and Senator. Thank you for joining me on this debate. Okay, thank you guys so much for coming to this debate, and I just want to remind you all that this is to be very cordial, okay? I don't want any shouting. I don't want any bullshit Chris Wallace shit, okay? So and no lies, because I know. I'm in those. So the first question goes to you, Mr. President. So with the rebranding sorts of Padopal. Now we've taken up the mantle again of the United States. Will we? First of all, we've admitted several new states to the Union. All of New England and New York and Minnesota in that area. So the question I have for you is, how are you going to avoid the pitfalls that befell America the first time before its collapse? If you were to be elected to a second term, and will you keep the capital in Padastan-Padopal, or will you move the capital back to Washington, D.C.? Okay. That's actually a really good question. Okay, so with the America rebrand, I feel like it was time to take up the mantle. Our Constitution is already heavily inspired by Washington anyway, so I decided that, since no other country had successfully been able to reclaim the title of the United States after the collapse, I thought that it was right, as a spiritual successor of Washington and his ideals, as well as the Founding Fathers, that our country finally take the responsibility to have this great flag above us here today, and to fly that flag above our country. Now, as far as avoiding the problems that America had before, I think the main problem that the United States had prior, first of all, political corruption, okay? As you guys saw 11 years ago, right when I took office, after our revolution concluded, I was impeached and attacked by the former Speaker of the House, who's now dead. He killed himself during the military tribunal because they had committed voter fraud and tried to illegally remove me as the president. Now, the number one thing that we need to do to avoid becoming what happened to the United States is avoiding fraud fraudulent elections. Number 2, avoiding political corruption. Now, this law that I'm proposing to Congress shortly, and I will probably get it passed if we get reelected, will ban lobbying from any private corporation. Now, this goes against the old United States decision, FEC versus United or whatever it was, where they said that a corporation donating money was free speech. That literally circumvents all of our current laws regarding campaign finance violations. So essentially, corporations can buy politicians, and that is the main problem and how America became destroyed, because then you had foreign influence come in with the foreign corporations spending money on these things, and then they funnel money to themselves, and they basically become career politicians. As far as moving the capital to DC, DC has been its own entity now for 57 years, since the collapse of the United States. I mean, the Sovereign Order of America briefly had control over Washington for a time, but I think that right now, first of all, we got more things to worry about than moving the capital from Podesta and Padopoul, and it's not just because it's named after me. I mean, I didn't even want them to name it after me. That was done by the council of the city when they created the city, and they renamed it. But that's what I will do if I'm elected to a second term. I will get rid of the circumnavigation of our campaign finance laws, continue to push forward our administration's agenda, and I will keep pushing forward and to expand America to what hopefully it will never be what it was before. Maybe we can be better. Thank you. Senator, now I will ask you the same question. If you were elected to your first term as president, what would you do regarding the situation with the capital moving, and how would you avoid the pitfalls of what happened to America the first time?
Okay, so as far as what the president just said, as far as the problems of America, I completely agree. However, 11 years you've been president and you haven't passed this law yet. Why did you just think of this now? Anyway, as far as what I would do, we just have to be better. We have to build back better than before, and we just have to do it now instead of when they should have did it. They should have did it then, but instead we're doing it now because we can't go back then and do it now. As far as if I would move the capital, I think that, Washington, D.C. has a lot of history, and I think that maybe we should continue the history. Maybe we should. Maybe we should move the capital, especially seeing as how it's named after our current president, which I don't know why. It just rubs me the wrong way. It just rubs me the wrong way. Look, it does. So, anyway, secondly, okay, that's really all I have to say about that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Senator. Next question I have to you, Senator, this time. If you, first of all, if you were elected to a term as president, if you were able to defeat President Podesta in the general election this November, how would you approach the situation that we have upcoming with the Alaska sovereignty, as well as expanding westward and establishing control on the Pacific coast? How would you go about doing that? And are you trying? Okay.
Okay, so as far as Alaska is concerned, I will be steadfast. Russia will not get Alaska, and if they encroach. Anyway, as far as Alaska is concerned, Russia will not get their hands on Alaska. I refuse. There's too much valuable there's too much value at stake. We cannot allow them to control the corridor of the North Atlantic, and we can't allow them to control the Arctic Ocean. We must secure Alaska at all costs. Yes, that means nuclear war as well. We need to take a global approach. We need to use global allies, okay? We just cannot We cannot afford to lose Alaska. And yes, that may mean we need to go to war.
Hold on, Mr. Senator.
Mr. President, hold on. Give him a chance to speak.
It's what also the president claims to in his speeches that he wants to secure Alaska, but yet he's talking with Russia as if we're best friends. He's treating Russia unfairly, and I just don't think that's a good idea. That we should be doing it. So,
Okay, Mr. President, I asked you the same question. How would you continue our expansion westward, and how would you deal with Russia differently?
Yes, I'd like very much to respond to what he just said. So, Senator, just so you're aware, we weren't even in the position to even achieve sovereignty over Alaska before my administration. Okay, first of all. Second of all, you talk about wanting to get out on the global stage in your campaign rallies, but yet you literally are trying to piss off a Russia country that is becoming rapidly
and you're allowing
powerful
them to become more
by the
powerful,
day.
Mr. President.
You're
allowing them to become more
you want us to go to war over Alaska without
prevent them
coming to
from
a
becoming
diplomatic
powerful,
solution.
yes.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. So, as far as that claim is, that's ridiculous. Okay, there's ways that we can work this to where we can have a non.
They shouldn't be at the negotiation.
We can
Mr.
move
President.
forward together with a potential Russia partnership in the future over the sovereignty of Alaska. They're in no position to bargain either. Just like we are really not in position to bargain. We still have to expand westward to the coast to even get access to the Pacific Ocean, which we're doing right now. I just deployed 145,000 troops to secure Washington and Oregon and a pathway to the West Coast, to the Pacific. Because if we're going to be a global superpower again, we need to be transoceanic, okay? We need to have access to both sides of the ocean. And until we get that, we really can't bargain for Alaska either. Now, they're dealing with their own civil war situation right now. We have to fix our shit first, but I'm confident with the speed at which we're fixing our problems, we might not even have to negotiate over Alaska. If we're in a position to where we control a sizable portion of the Pacific coast and our Navy is established out there, then there is no issue. I've already talked to the president of Russia. I've talked to him multiple times. Okay? He knows he does not want a war over this either, okay? And I don't want a war. You're the only one who's talking as if you want a war.
Okay, so, Mr. President, I will ask you. We've gone through various periods of isolationism in your first term. How much different will a second term be as far as on the global stage, and will you take a more direct approach in global conflicts, considering the breakout of the Israeli-Egyptian-Iranian war?
That's actually a perfect segue, Iman. So, our isolationism, yes, we've been through periods of isolationism before. First of all, the first one was after 2 wars, okay? The second one was after a global conflict, okay? Millions dead, and Moab detonated in the middle of Cincinnati. People are still trying to recover from that, and that happened a year ago, okay? So the conflict is very fresh in people's minds still. I don't want war. I don't want to go get involved in other countries. Now, I'm the president of the United States of America, okay? I'm not the president of the world. I'm not the fucking captain of the world police, okay? That's not our job as Americans to police the world. It's our job to fix our own country and worry about our interests first, okay? Obviously, we have allies, and we can protect those allies, and we have treaties with them. But we have to protect our interests first. And the periods of isolationism that I've engaged in have been strategic, and they've been to protect our country from getting looped into these conflicts. Also, we had to have a period of rest after we just went through the bloodiest war in Padopolis history at the time, trying to take out a communist neighbor to the north. Okay, now, I'm not trying to rapidly expand, and I'm not trying to get involved in conflicts like the Israeli-Egyptian war. I've talked to leaders. I've talked to the Egyptian Caliphate leader. I haven't spoken to the president of Israel, and I haven't spoken to the leaders of Iran yet. But I will be doing that. And if elected to a second term, I'll just assure you that every action that I take is to protect America, is to protect our interests. To be honest with you, I really don't give a shit what happens globally speaking if it doesn't affect us. If it doesn't affect us, it doesn't affect us. So I don't understand what... Okay. Go ahead. Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much. Mr. Senator, so you have a contrasting view on this, I know. How would you respond to what the president just said?
Okay, so the president's claim about isolationism, it's extremely dangerous for a power like us to be isolationist. Because if we are not the world police, then who's going to be the world police? Who's going to be the world police? If we're not doing it, then who's going to do it? Okay? Now, secondly, we need to be on the global stage. And we need to take a front seat. We cannot afford to be isolationist, okay? And if that means getting involved in conflicts such as the Israel conflict, then we have to do it. I don't know which side we would take because I really don't know shit about the conflict. I just know that it just started. And if we're with the world police have to show up to a burglary call, or something.
Now hold on, wait a minute. That's stupid.
Now, secondly, we have to defend democracy globally, and we have to support democracy. And we have to force democracy on the countries that don't want democracy. Because democracy is the best. And that's the American way. That's how Dad did it. That's how America did it. And it's worked out shittily so far, but you know.
Okay, how'd that work for George Bush?
Well, I think that's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for the debate, gentlemen. I'm very surprised with this all. Thank you so much for having us here, and good night to all the PNN viewers out there. Have a great evening.